Welcome to the 38th episode of the South African Equestrian Federation's podcast From the Horse's Mouth, where we speak about wonderful working equitation today. And I'm very lucky to have in studio Jorge Parreira, international working equitation coach and trainer and judge, perhaps in South Africa, better known as an extremely well-known as dressage trainer. We're very lucky to have him here in studio, as well as virtually Jonothan Harrison, who's the president of the South African Working Equitation Federation. Jonothan and George, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, I'm very excited to hear about this. It was obviously a little bit of a rushed organization because George, we're taking advantage of having you here in South Africa at the moment. And I've only ever known you as being a dressage coach to high-end riders in South Africa. So I was really excited to hear that you wear many hats in Portugal, where you come from. And one of those is being involved with working equitation. Just to begin, would you mind telling us a little bit about what working equitation is?
Okay, it's a pleasure. Working equitation started a few years ago when we realized not all the horses were super movers towards the dressage. So some horses didn't have great trot or great movements towards the dressage. So we had to find something for them to fit in. So as you know, in Portugal, there's something very popular, which is the bullfighting, and it comes from the tradition. And the working equitation, it's something that basically we apply it in the fields when they need to work with the bulls. It's from that tradition, and it was something that was created based on that tradition. And it was with that goal that we tried to develop something to make it like a discipline where those horses could have
I think it's another career, but I think it's also really fun for the riders from what I see.
It's great fun.
Yeah,
it's great fun.
I think, Jonathan, you early on called it the fun way to train seriously.
Yep, Georgie, that's the way it's kind of been promoted. I don't know, but certainly within Australia. And yeah, as I say, we've sort of followed the Australians in believing that that's a good way to promote it.
And I really like that. So, George, how old is the sport as a discipline?
Not very old, maybe 20 years, 15, 20 years.
That's incredible.
And maybe it's a good thing to explain now what's the goal.
Yes.
The history of it. It's as well in dressage. Not many people know this, but even the top dressage riders, some of them don't know it. But the goal of dressage and the goal of everything we do on horseback comes from the 17th century, where we used to work for the kings, preparing the horses in the court for the warriors to go into battle and fight. So luckily nowadays there's no fight on horseback.
Oh, there's lots of fighting on horseback, George.
I know, but you know what I mean. So we kept doing that and training the horses.
Nice.
And the goal, as I said, it was to have the horses conducted by one hand and the other hand free to use the sword. And like things like caprioles and stuff like that were invented to fight the warriors behind you. And again, even nowadays, in an international competition, if you ride one or two exercises with a single hand, you score more.
Okay,
because it's a higher degree of difficulty.
Yes.
So all of that, we still ride nowadays with the goal of steering the horse with a single hand. And obviously, the higher the master's degree in working equitation, the rider cannot or should not touch the reins with the right hand. He should do everything with a single hand, and that's the goal. So that's part of the history, and that's the purpose of the working equitation.
It's beautiful, and to have a really rideable horse, which I think everybody wants.
Yes.
It's nice. It's nice to have a nice horse to ride.
It is.
And then let's speak a little bit about the demands on the riders. So you were saying that they have to ride with one hand. And Jonathan, you were speaking very passionately earlier on the phone to me this morning about how it really puts the focus onto correct training of the riders, that the riders have to ride more with the seat because of this.
Yeah, that's certainly, as I say, when I came across an article written by Tina Karkelin, and she kind of said when she's looking at a dressage rider, she's looking for somebody who rides 80% through the core, 16% of legs, and 4% on the hands. And in working equitation, riding one-handed, you can't use basically more than 4% of your hands. So, but it also comes from, I was told many years back that the discipline or the sport that is closest to horse riding is in fact surfing. And if you look at the body movements of a surfer, they're small movements. It's just small changes of weight. And I believe that's what the working equitation rider, a good working equitation rider, does as well. It's just small changes in his weight in the saddle that causes the horse to change its gait and its paces.
And George, you're involved in Portugal with this as a trainer, a trainer, coach, and a judge in the federation.
Yep.
So, what are the different aspects of a beginning working equitation test?
Okay, the most important thing, and I believe that happens as well in eventing, the most important thing that we can ever skip, and that's where we really need to focus, it's the dressage part of it. It's where you really need to be accurate and not try to avoid, because the dressage gives you the full control of your horse, and at the end of the day, it's all about control. So you really need to focus on that. It doesn't, independent of any degree you want to compete at, you really need to focus on your dressage. Everything else, when you have control of your horse, obviously, becomes a lot easier. And that's it. You really need to focus on that. And the degree can be small. It can be walk, trot, and obviously in this country where you are starting, every horse can do a little bit of working equitation.
So, I mean, obviously, a Portuguese horse, like the bullfighting horses, are the ultimate, but every horse can do.
They are because they have been selected for these for centuries. But it doesn't mean that there's one girl in our team. She's vice world champion. And she competed a warm blood that she's a super dressage rider.
Oh, that's lovely.
And she did it with a warm blood, but really a warm blood, a heavy horse, and she was vice champion on that horse.
Okay, that's nice
so
to know.
they can do it. Every type of horse with good training that doesn't spook, obviously, with good brain, with good training,
Good brain.
exactly, which is essential, can do it. So it's a matter of practicing and again. In this country, we don't have many Lusitanos, but they don't have many Lusitanos in Canada, in Australia, in Mexico, and they have teams all over the world.
And how many federations are now joining working equitation?
I don't want to lie to you, but I think about 25.
Oh, that's great.
All over the world.
So it's really growing in popularity.
It's amazing. You cannot believe how many. It's unbelievable.
And what is a working equitation competition? For people who've never heard of it, what are they going to be expected to do?
Normally it's done in 2 days because it's quite hard for the riders and the horses. And you do your dressage test according to your level, obviously. And then later on, let's say you do it in the morning, and in the afternoon, you have the maniability, which is a course.
Nice.
Always different, with the different obstacles, with different designs every time. And then in the afternoon, you do that course, and you are judged according to the precision you do those obstacles.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
The flying changes must be super correct. The horse should bend. the paces should be clear. There's lots of things that as a judge you want to see. The horse supple, not stressed.
Absolute rideability.
Exactly. Applying the dressage to the
Practical.
exactly. Applying
like
the
that,
dressage to the obstacles.
Okay.
It must be accurate. And again, if your dressage is not correct, you lose a lot of points. If the horse is crooked, the changes are light, is not accepting the contact, all those things reflect in
That's
your
really
in
fun.
your
That's
mark.
nice. I like the practical application of this, Jonathan. I think it's a really interesting thing. It's maybe where we lose a lot of young riders, I think, in dressage, is it can be, and I say this as a dressage rider, and I know you are as well, we love it, but it can be a little uninspiring for them. They can't always see the practical outcome of having a really super rideable dressage horse. So jumping lands up becoming more fun for them sometimes, and this is a really lovely way
It
to
is.
test what
it
you've made.
It is. And it doesn't mean you cannot do both. Sorry, Jonathan, sorry. And it doesn't mean you cannot do both of them.
Yes.
You can do both. So, and then the second day, normally we do it on the second day, you have the same, where you do it in full speed. And there I don't judge. You don't need to judge. The only thing you need to see if it's they do the how do you say? If they don't do mistakes,
Okay.
do the first, second, third obstacle on that order, and obviously you see the times. They
Oh,
move
so it's
correct,
just on speed, that
just
one.
on speed.
Okay, fantastic.
And
That's
then
quite fun.
at the end, you see you add the marks from your dressage test, from the maniability and the speed, and then
It's really
winner.
fun.
And the
That'll
speed,
teach dressage riders to go forward.
exactly. The speed, it's incredible. Jonathan can tell you about that. The speed, it's incredible.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
And Jonathan, what made you think that working equitation was something that needed to come to South Africa?
Georgie, I've worked with a number of judges from overseas, and judges don't talk to people on the ground who are paying their salaries, but they don't pay my salary, so they open with me. And I realized that we're not quite on a level where we ought to be with the rest of the world. So it was looking for something to fill in the gaps. And working equitation, as I say, I bumped into a judge from the USA who came out here as a breed judge, and I spoke to him, and he said, no, this is a great discipline. And I'll be quite honest, every CDI that I've worked with, I've spoken to the international judges there, said, what's your feeling about working equitation? Not once have I heard a negative from any of the judges. And I just know this is the right thing. It gives us a foundation that we can work from.
I think it would be quite a fun thing to set up a challenge team between some like polo riders, some show jumpers, some dressage riders, because all it is, as you were saying, George, it's superior rideability.
Yeah.
And it's excellent training on behalf of the rider. And as long as these core principles are adhered to across all of the disciplines, you're going to land up with a horse that's more responsive, that's stronger in its body, and hopefully a rider that is more adaptable to each horse and each thing they want to do.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Georgie, that is what we are trying to do, is just, even show jumping is 80% flat work. The good show jumpers don't teach their horses to jump. They teach them flat work. They teach them how to get to the jumps.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely essential.
Yeah.
George, and then what are the different levels? I'm assuming your first level, you're not going to be expected to do flying changes.
No, obviously.
What
no.
are the different levels and what's expected?
Yeah, it's like it's a little bit like jumping or dressage or wherever.
Okay.
You start from easier levels, and then you have as well, according to the age of the riders.
Okay, that's good.
Beginners, juniors, young riders, and then
Adults.
seniors. Adults. And then you have all different levels for horses as well.
Okay, great. Okay.
Young horses. I don't know how to translate into English, because we've got our own
Terminology.
levels. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. But there's levels for beginner riders and beginner
Lovely.
horses, and it's super easy, and people should join and try, because I'm gonna say something. Uh, it's more fun than dressage.
I totally
Look,
understand, yes, yeah.
you should be
Yeah,
honest, and it's
yeah.
much more fun, because although I'm kind of saying a little bit of a contradiction here when I told you the dressage it's the most important thing. It's very important, but you have kind of a goal. You are treating your horse with a goal to have fun, a little bit later. So, and then
It
it's
becomes
not.
you and your horse
It
versus the
is,
course,
yeah,
which I
and
think
we
is
all
nice.
know there's this thing about, oh, but then the judges didn't like me and this and that, and there's always the judge and the judge. At the end of the day, in this discipline, it's the chronometer that will tell you if you win or not. So we take the judge out of the equation at some stage, and
lovely.
that's the speed, and then it's something because of those 3 days make a very nice spirit team
That's nice.
because you get a friend, everyone start pushing for the other in the speed, and
That's
you
fun.
forget about competition, and you start. It's fun. It's great fun. It creates feelings that you actually don't have.
In the other
Yeah.
disciplines, I think also the team element is quite nice, because it can
It
be a
is.
very solitary sport riding.
Yeah.
You know, it's you and your horse, and you ride and you train and you,
Yeah.
but it's in a bit of a bubble.
Yeah.
So that's
And
quite fun.
It is fun. It is fun.
Jonathan, what are some of the obstacles that riders, while we're encouraging them to come, can expect to see on their first working equitation track?
The normal ones, or basically what is a working equitation obstacle is the use of the lance. So the garrocha is very important. The way to pick it out of a barrel, spear a ball or a ring, and be able to replace the garrocha on the barrel on the other side. That's very much part of your one-handed stuff. But you'll also find there's a sort of single slalom, there's a double slalom, there's a gate, there's barrels, 2 barrels, or the 3 barrels. Those are your kind of, so I think there are 18 which are world recognized across the world as the obstacles. And then each region basically adds their own ones. So the the Australians have thrown in an oilskin,
That's quite
stop, put
fun.
on an oilskin jacket, and then ride your horse on, etc. So
In South
yeah,
Africa, we can
as I
stop and
say,
put on some sunblock.
every region has allowed themselves to add on ideas, and it's all about fitting in with what we've got. And we were very fortunate, because when we approached the Australians, and as I said to George, the only reason why we approached Australia for the rules was that it was written in first language English, so it was something that was understandable.
They've done the hard
for
work
everyone.
already.
Yeah. So yeah, and at that stage their rules were copyright, but we've since had permission from the new committee in Australia to change their rules and adapt them to South African conditions. So it's been fabulous. It's been a nice relationship that we built up with ANWER, which is the Australian National Working Equitation.
That's great. And I know George said he gave a seminar this last weekend, which I'm sure everyone benefited from. What's next for Working Equitation South Africa? How do people get involved, Jonathan?
There are quite a lot of people who are involved already. The best thing is to go on to, well, we've got Facebook accounts for South African Working Equitation. It's ZAWE, Z-A-W-E. We had to go ZAWE because South Australia had taken that one. So that's why it became ZAWE, South African Working Equitation.
Okay.
So it is on Facebook. Most of the provinces are also running their own small Facebook ones. And of course, you can contact us on the website, which is www.zawe.org.za.
That's great. And where are there going to be more training opportunities for people to come and maybe just have a try at the obstacles? Or I'm most
There's
concerned
quite a
about where
lot
they're going to
going
find a
on in
very long stick,
the,
Jonathan.
yeah. Georgie, there's quite a lot going on in Gauteng at the moment. Christelle, but as I say, it all goes up on the website between Christelle and Sarah Jane McCrindle. They're running quite a lot of shows up in Gauteng. Um, Pumalanga also has quite a lot of, they've been running quite a lot of shows. We just recently did one in the Northwest, which was fairly successful. So yeah, as I say, it's growing, and um, I believe it is happening down in Cape Town, but the independent Republic of the Cape.
The
Like to
Republic of
talk
the
to
Western
us.
Cape.
And
I'm sure it's all going to come together, Jonathan. I think getting it going and getting it out there. It's one of the first opportunities I've had to engage with. I've actually seen videos of it on Facebook. There's a fantastic video of a little girl.
10-year-old.
Yes,
There's two of them, two
she's
10-year-old
phenomenal.
girls. We held about 15 days ago, just before I came, we had in Portugal the World Championship of the young riders and juniors World Championships competition. And there was, I think it was, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 countries. And Portugal became champions by teams and individuals in both juniors and
They're
young
better,
riders.
George.
And 10-year-old girls, two 10-year-old girls, you should see it. It's unbelievable.
So I would really encourage everyone to go and see that. I think she was in the speed part of the
And
class, the
both,
one video that I've seen.
she had to do everything. Yeah,
Unbelievable. It's just the relationship between one hand.
unbelievable.
It was really beautiful to see. And Jonathan, I think you said it to me early on the phone, it becomes a practical application for other disciplines. So it's not necessarily a discipline you would do solely by itself, but it's a complement and a little bit of a fun add-on to every rider's repertoire.
Yeah, Georgie, as I said, with the dressage judges that I've spoken to have said that where those dressage horses are involved in working equitation as well, they can see that there's a change, because instead of just doing the same exercise around the ring, which in Europe they don't generally get to go out, to have something of interest in the arena for them to look at and be able to negotiate gives them some meaning to their horses' lives. So, yeah, as I say, it's to me, it's been a very positive discipline.
I think also you speak about the bullfighting, and regardless of thoughts on that, obvious it's under a spotlight internationally.
No, but
Those horses are committed to their job,
they are.
and they do, as Jonathan was saying, the horses are actually interested in it, and you're giving your horse a job.
Yeah, and that is finishing in Europe. The bullfighting in Portugal.
Oh, is it?
It's
Okay.
finishing, yeah. And but obviously the traditional will always be there, and it's going to be replaced by something else. And I think this is going to be it.
This is lovely.
Yeah, things evolved, and this is going to be, I think, what will keep the tradition. And I'm sorry, I think Jonathan forgot about something about the news of working equitation in this country. I'm coming back in October,
Fantastic.
and I agree with the one that organized things in Portugal about working equitation, the director. We will make a course for judges
Oh, that's so
in this
exciting.
country. So we will have a few judges in this country, which will help a lot.
It's essential. The judges do drive the sports to a large degree.
Yes, and I would like to
Fantastic.
explain you something, so you can be aware of how much fun we had. When we did the seminar, there was in the morning we did something with the PowerPoint, and then in the afternoon we had 2 guinea pigs. We did the obstacles. And you cannot imagine, with 2 guinea pigs in the lower level, the amount of fun we had
that's
with
great.
those 2 horses. We
That's
had,
so lovely.
we had so much fun that there was one that did one obstacle, and then the other, and you cannot imagine how much we laughed, because it was great fun, and it was just a little show of what you should do, what you cannot do, and the spirit of the team and the people that were involved, and forget
Coming
about dressage.
together.
That was so fun, so much fun, and it creates a spirit that doesn't happen with any other sport, I think.
That's really lovely. I think that's a great
it
way
is.
of looking at
It
it.
is.
Jonathan, so if people want to be on the waiting list for October, again, do they just contact ZAWE?
Yeah, as I say, go onto the website or talk to us through the Facebook platforms. Obviously, they can get hold of me directly as well. I don't have a problem. As I say, I have a love and a passion for the sport, so I'm always available to talk about it, Georgie.
Fantastic. George, is there anything else you would like to add before we finish?
Yeah, I would like to say that Jonathan is doing a great job about promoting this sport in this country. And I appreciate what he's doing for the sport, and that I'm always available to help in any way I can.
Thank you, George. Thanks. That's a really wonderful. And it also speaks to how much you love the sport, that you're coming to South Africa and giving us of your energy. You did say you've been coming to South Africa for how many years now?
30 years this year.
I mean, that's incredible.
5 times a year.
That's really something. So thank you. And it would be lovely. I'm sorry it's taken us 30 years to bring your national sports to a bigger audience in South Africa. Jonathan, is there anything else you would like to add?
No. Well, what I was going to say is basically there are 8 levels. As I say, they can go onto the ZAWE website. You can download the rule book on the ZAWE website. You can download the dressage tests. It goes right from lead rein up to masters. So there are the 8 levels, and you can begin to understand. And find a fun way to train seriously. What can one say?
I love that. Lead rein sounds like it's going to be a lot of work for the person on the ground, especially in the speed part. So mothers need to start getting fit.
They don't run the speed in lead rein.
Oh, okay, all right. No, Jonathan, I think we should change that. Let's make it more interesting. I want to see some parents running. Thank you both so much for joining us. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
This has been Jorge Parreira and Jonothan Harrison speaking to us about working equitation in South Africa, a very exciting new sport, practical application for testing the supreme rideability of horse and the very good training of the rider. I hope that you enjoyed this. Don't forget to visit the ZAWE website. That's www.zawe.org.za. And we'll see you here again next week.